Okay. What, did something bad happen?
No, yeah. You're like,
Well, because it's the new recorder thing. It's like a little.
So why did you switch to?
Huh?
This is his VR.
Yeah, just for the game stuff.
Why did you switch to
Is it a
Android?
1080 or 1070?
This is 1070.
Yeah.
Why did I switch to Android? Because I wasn't that excited about iPhone 10, and why should I wait 2 months for a phone that I'm not all that excited about when I might not even be able to get it? That's 2 months to pre-order it. Well, this is better hardware than the Pixel 2, and the Pixel 2 is also not out yet.
It's coming out in like iPhone.
It's getting announced in a couple weeks. Who knows when it'll be out?
The rumor is that they're going to release it.
No, that might be. I mean, that might be true. But this works also with the Gear VR.
That's the Galaxy Note 8.
Yeah, but this works with the Gear VR, so which is better than Google Daydream.
Why'd you get that one rather than the S8?
Because I wanted the biggest screen.
Should have gone for the S7.
This is a bigger screen than that.
The S7 and the Note 7.
The Note 7, the exploding one?
That one. Yeah.
Well, because
this
this one just came out. This is better.
Well,
yeah, but it doesn't blow up.
What did happen?
Although I have noticed, I have noticed though that this guy, the cellular reception is not as good as it was on my iPhone 7.
Well, who's your carrier?
AT&T.
That's why.
That's why.
No. I mean, I had AT&T with iPhone 7. I have AT&T with this.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I've noticed with Android phones on campus, if you don't have Sprint, it's like really.
Well, that should be any phone. So we need to backtrack it. No, so far your assessment of that's why is not correct. My situation is that the Android OS perhaps is giving you a better reality of what your cell phone connection is, and iPhone sugarcoats it. It's like you really have half a bar, so we'll throw up 2 bars. All right, shut up.
That's good because it's not plugged in.
All right, let's start working on this.
I left you a message in Slack, by the way.
I take it I shouldn't open it right now?
In the 518.
Oh. All right, so let's see what this guy does right now. So when we get kind of close, I think we hit a collider here, and Gabriel shows up. So now we have our, so we put up a little thing, press trigger to continue with the ideas. We're going to press T to kind of work through the dialogue. Now, we want to have a way to deliver dialogue consistently. That way we don't have to write it every single time that we want to have a back and forth dialogue between something in our game and us. Okay, there needs to be some sort of mechanism for doing this. So we're going to need a container for holding our sayings, our quotes, right? So I'm going to need a way of holding a bunch of strings. What does that sound like to us? String array, linked list, something like that. Okay, probably in our case here, it'll be something like a list because we don't necessarily know exactly how many verses we're going to hold. So we're going to build some sort of object, and this object is going to be our player of dialogue. Okay, so go ahead and hit escape here. So let's go into our scripts. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create I'm going to use Unity to create a new C# script. I'm actually going to take a lot of the stuff out of the script because I don't actually want it to be a traditional Unity script. I want it to behave as a normal C# object. Okay, I'm going to use this guy for doing some stuff. So we're going to call this guy our Dialog Controller. Okay. Now, if you want, Romana, can you hit the second to the top button on the lights there? That'll darken it up here just a little bit. So you should be able to see this a little bit better then. Good. All right. That way I can kind of nap up here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click. So I just called this guy Dialog Controller. So this is going to be used for controlling our dialogues. Okay. I am going to leave the Unity engine thing in here because I'm actually going to, as part of this guy, I'm going to hand it the things it's going to need for displaying dialogue stuff on the screen. But what we really don't need is we don't need it to be this mono behavior thing. All right. So this guy's actually just going to be an object. Which actually is the default, right? So we can actually just remove this part. So we're no longer going to have a start or an update. So this is going to be our dialog controller. And let's see, in C#, the constructor has the same name as the class, right? So this would be public, the keys, dialog controller. Let's initially have this guy take in no parameters. And we'll have it set some stuff up in here. So at the very least, at the very top here, we want to have a private variable for holding our collection of strings. These are going to be the back and forth dialogue. So we're going to have private, what do we got? Do we have a linked list? Private linked list. And this guy's going to hold strings. Now we're going to call this the comments, something like that. It's a lowercase s in string in this. Okay, so then in the constructor, we'll go ahead and we'll say this dot the comments is equal to a new linked list of strings. All right, now we need to have a way of getting our comments into this guy. So several different ways we can probably pull this off. Maybe initially we can go ahead and load comments in. All right, so maybe give us a function that allows us to add comments to this. So it's kind of like we build a comment, a dialog controller, then maybe we'll eventually have two constructors, one that takes in a linked list of all the comments, but another one that allows us to put comments in the order. But really what a comment is ultimately going to be is it's going to be kind of two pieces, right? It's going to be who and what. So in this conversation we have right now, we have Gabriel saying some stuff, and then we have us saying some stuff. And who are we in our story right now? We're Mary. Okay, so we have two different people in a dialogue. Now, might there be dialogues that have more than two people? Yeah. So when we show something on the screen, we need to, we're gonna have audio eventually, but right now we're showing the text side of things, right? So we need to be able to say who is saying it and then what they're saying. All right, so we can kind of follow the conversation. Something else we could do then is we could then control maybe the color of the text if it's being said by somebody else. We have some customization we can do with that, but let's just keep it simple. It's just going to be a who and what right now. All right, so with that in mind, I'm actually not going to have a linked list of strings. Okay, I need to have a linked list of, what do you want to call them, dialogue components or something like that, where a dialogue component is a person, which is going to be a string name, and then the comment itself. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create another script. Now, I can probably just add it in here, but because I haven't necessarily done that before, I don't want to spend time fixing the solution. I'm actually going to go back here into Unity. I'm going to add the next script through Unity and just fix it again. I'm pretty sure I could just right-click and add it to the solution, but I don't want to have to debug that in here if that's not the case. So I'll create another C# script. Now I know it's part of my solution for this project. I'm going to call this guy dialog component. Go ahead and double-click on that guy. All right, and we're going to do pretty much the same thing that we did to the other one. This is going to be the downside of going back and forth between the MacBook Pro and this laptop in a single day. So I taught on this guy this morning at 8. Then I taught on my MacBook Pro at 10. I'm teaching on this one. The keyboard is about a half a key off difference. So I keep, especially when we start getting over here with the arrows and stuff. Okay. So here's my dialog component. This guy's going to have 2 variables, private string who, private string comment. Then we'll have our constructor, public, dialog component. This guy will take in a string who, take in a string comment. This dot who is equal to who. This dot, yeah, the dot is definitely in a different place. This dot comment is equal to comment. Okay, so that'll set those couple of things up. We'll go ahead and we'll add some accessor methods here in a few minutes when we actually need it. But for right now, this is enough to kind of get us started. So now back here in our dialog controller, this linked list is no longer a linked list of strings. It's now a linked list of dialog components, right? That's the kind of thing this guy is. And this guy will be a new linked list of dialog components. All right, so now in our dialog controller, that's weird. Now in our dialog controller, we want to give ourselves a public method for adding a comment. All right, this might not be the best way of doing it in the end, but let's just do it this way for now. That'll give us the mechanics of this. So it's going to be a public method. It's not going to return anything because we're just adding something to our collection. But now when we add a new dialog component, we're going to need 2 pieces of information. We're going to need the who's saying it, and we're going to need the what they're saying, the comment. So we're going to call this guy add comment. Or actually, let's stick with our naming convention. So we're going to say add dialog component, and this guy will take in a string who and a string comment. And we'll go ahead and say this dot the comments. And actually, just to keep with a better naming convention, instead of calling it the comments here, I'm going to call it the components. So this dot components dot add last. So we'll always add to the end of this guy. What are we going to add? We're going to add a new dialog component. And the dialog component takes in 2 parameters, a who and a comment. So I just happen to have a who and a comment here. Now we have that guy there. Make sense? Okay. So these are just plain Jane, what language? C#. These are plain Jane C# objects. Okay? Nothing to do with Unity. Just they're objects we want to be able to use as part of our project. All right, so now in our actual Unity scene, let's go back out here. I already have the scene controller, right? And do we have a script for the scene controller yet? Here's our scene controller script. Who starts our, well, right now, who starts our dialogue? When we walk up, let's go ahead and click on that scene controller. Is that this guy? Who's responding to that box collider?
Mary.
Mary?
Or you can put down the angel.
A who?
Angel.
I'll put it on the angel? Well, who did we put it on? That's what I'm asking. So let's go to the Mary script. Well, the on trigger enter. Set on movement. This would be Mary.
I know we cleared on the wood, and then the wood sends a message to you.
Okay, we did the send message thing. So here's the firewood. Here's on trigger enter. Firewood knows about Gabriel, goes ahead and sends a message to Gabriel, telling Gabriel to summon himself. Okay, so Gabriel then comes down. So we'll look at the Gabriel object here. That's this dude. Gabriel summons himself. So this is the message that's received. So he changes his transform, and then he starts sending a message to our scene controller. All right, so the message we're sending is update text as well as greetings, blah, blah, blah. So it's actually our scene controller itself that knows how to show this message. All right, so now what we want to do is this was kind of where we stopped, right? We said, okay, our scene controller can spit a message out. So inside of our scene controller, we're going to see that there's a function in there called update text that takes a string as a parameter. Here's our scene controller right here. Here's update text. And what does that guy do? He sets Mary's text message text equal to S. And then we render the text for the player. So let's see, player command text. So Mary has a text mesh and the player has a text mesh. What's the difference between those two? Let me run this again here.
I think one of them is the press trigger for next.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so the green stuff there is the player's thing, and the other one is the Mary's text. Okay, so realistically speaking, the player thing is more of a command, right? So that's kind of like telling us what to do, where the other one is more of a dialogue that is going to be in front of us. We can decide to play with this a little bit, I suppose. But if we're using two different text messages, one for the command and one for the message itself, let's just mess with the message itself, and then we'll decide how we want to progress it. So this thing where it says, greetings, you who are highly favored, the Lord is with you. What we want that to now say is Gabriel, greetings, you are highly favored, the Lord is with you. So we need to load these comments in. So in order to play this, the scene manager is going to request the next message that's going to display. Okay, so we're going to have this container of messages. So let's go in here. And let's just add a couple of messages. So this is Luke 1. Okay, so here's that first line. Greetings, who are highly favored, the Lord is with you. So I'm actually just going to steal some of these lines from here, even though we already have that one. We'll roll with this. All right, so in our scene manager, our scene controller, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a private variable of type Dialog Controller. All right, so we'll create a private Dialog Controller. the dialog controller. Inside of start, we'll give that guy a value. So this dot the dialog controller is equal to a new dialog controller. All right, so now let's load in, let's just do maybe three messages so we can kind of see that back and forth, and then we'll load in more after that. So now we'll say this dot the dialog controller. Oh. Add dialog component, and the dialog component is going to be the who is saying this. So our first who is Gabriel. Is that spelled right? Is that Gabriel? Is that how you spell it? You guys are such a huge help out over there. Gabriel. Yep. What's that?
I'm really good at English.
Yeah. All right, and then the actual message we'll send is that one, and those aren't the real double quotes, so we have to fix those double quotes. Okay, so that's the first message we'll load in. So we're adding a dialog component. Gabriel's the one who's saying it. Greetings, you. Go ahead.
You need to add the line break.
Possibly. What we might actually do with that is we might do that in the get the next dialog thing in the component thing. That way it's always breaking at the right place for us based on distance. All right, so that's the first comment we'll load in there. Let's go get a couple more. So then the next thing is, do not be afraid. You have found favor with God. Oh man, it's a lot of stuff. That's his whole quote right there. So we probably want to break that up, right? So should Mary say something in the middle here? So this is Gabriel's first thing, but this isn't really a comment. This is just more of how Mary acted, right?
Yeah. You can turn that into a comment.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Was greatly troubled. What do you think Mary would say? If you put yourself in Mary's shoes, so we're going to say this dot the dialog controller dot add dialog component, and this is going to be Mary. So you got Archangel Gabriel popping down saying, greetings, you who are highly favored. What would your response be?
No, angels look like owls.
Sup? Say sup.
Sure.
What do you think, Alexis?
Why not?
Why not? No, you gotta have a yeah. Alexis, you could be our Mary in this case. So, what would so the angel comes down and says greetings. So we'll have to do the booming voice. So I got to make sure I have a little quote here. Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you.
Probably be like, why am I highly favored?
Oh, who are you?
Well, no. Hi. He might think he's Mary. So you might ask, why am I highly favored? Okay, so now we got to go back here, though. We got to look. And so Mary's supposed to be, so this is like reading a script, right? Mary's supposed to be troubled at the words from from Gabriel and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. So does that fit? It might. You think that fits? Why am I highly favored?
Why are you here?
Okay, all right, fine. Well, okay, not the something. What exactly does Mary say?
I'll probably say, oh no, like I said, what do you want? That sounds rude, but I would say like, why are you here? And why am I highly favored?
So you want to say both of those things? Why are you here and why am I highly favored?
Probably just for sure, like the why am I highly favored.
All right, so
that's like the first thing I'm talking about.
Why am I highly favored? All All right, and that came from Mary, right? Okay, then we're going to add some more dialogue. This dot the dialog controller dot add dialog component, and this is going to come from Gabriel. And what's Gabriel going to say in response? Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. And you're like, look, I just asked you that. Why? The question is why. All right, I think we can actually work that in here to break it up. All right. Did I mess something up?
What is he
No,
now?
it's just weird.
I did mess something up. Find my error.
What?
Gabriel?
It's Gabriel's creepy cousin. All right. Gabriel, do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. And then to that, Mary might, while Gabriel's still kind of talking, Mary might interject what?
I would say, I get that. You just said that. Why? Like, why am I here?
Who are you to say that I am favored?
Yeah, who are you to say that I am favored highly by the Lord?
Did you just assume that the Lord favors me? Tell me why.
All right, so Mary's going to say, what? Just. What did you say? You said, I get it, but why?
Or say, I get that, but why?
I get that, but why? Couple of question marks like that? Like an exasperated why.
2 T's and but.
double T. Nobody asked you, Joseph.
It's starting to seem a lot like Moses. A staff?
All right. So let's stop it with that. So we've got some back and forth now to test, right? We can certainly, once we have this thing playing out, then we can come back here and flesh out the dialogue and not have to worry about that aspect of it, right? Okay. Now, one thing we do need to figure out is how many characters were we able to have on the screen before we needed a carriage return? Let me run this guy here real quick. All right, so greetings, you who are highly favored. Okay. Actually, is that what I said in my previous one? Or have I copied new text? Okay. So it's this number of characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 38 characters, something like that. We probably could fit 40.
Should we look for a break between words before that?
Probably look for the closest break between words that is not more than 40. Something like that. So what we would do is we would jump. Oh, this would actually be an interesting way of handling it. This would be a cool little algorithm. All right. So we're going to say that we can fit 40 characters on a line. Okay. Let's go back into our script here. So here is our dialog controller. So now we're going to have a private variable in here. So private int, maybe pause. And this guy will start off at 0. So this is going to be position of the next component. All right. So now we're going to give them a public function that allows us to extract the next component. And the next component needs to be in the format of, the who, followed by a colon, followed by a space, followed by the comment. So let's first prepare that statement. All right. So we're going to go ahead and say public string get next comment, something like that, because now we're not getting a component, we're getting the full comment with the person's name in it. Probably fair enough. All right. So this guy's going to return a string. So the string is going to be, let's assume for right now, we'll have to figure out how do we terminate the conversation. But for right now, we'll just assume there's always going to be, we're going to call this the correct number of times, so there'll always be a next comment. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say string comment is equal to, let's actually give ourselves a component first. Dialog component DC is equal to this dot the components dot is it just, how do you access a bucket of a linked list in C#? But let us do it. Components dot object. Oh, I guess I can always just remove first. So I don't see a function specifically for getting a object. We can get an enumerator, which is going to give us the element, but I don't think we need to replay the comment. So this, with that in mind, we actually don't need a position. We'll just kind of feed off the list of comments until they're gone. So this guy will be remove first. So we will get the, what does this dude do? Oh, it doesn't remove it. Okay, I get it. So we need to get first, first, then this dot. It's a getter. What? Yeah, so that's a getter. So is it just get first? How do I grab an element from a C# linked list? Yes, you do. Get element C# linked list. Yeah, this guy doesn't have that extension. So that should get us the value. Then we'll say this dot the components dot remove first. All right, so now we have the dialog component. Then we're going to build a string out of that. And this is going to be the empty string concatenated with, we need to go ahead and get the comment and the who and then the comment. Just to make our lives a little easier here, since we know we're the only ones working with this, if we go to our dialog component, why don't we just make both of these guys public? And now we can directly access them. So we'll go ahead and add to the empty string this DC dot who, and we didn't even need the empty string there, but we put it anyways. Followed by colon space, followed by DC dot comment. All right, so that's ultimately the message that we want to return. But we need to put some character returns in there, some \ns to get it kind of the right distance. So now we have a little bit of an algorithm to write. We've decided we can show 40 characters on the screen at a time. Well, what we need to do though is we need to make sure that we put line breaks at the end of the word that is closest to 40 characters, but not passing up 40 characters. How would you do that? How would you write a function that needs to insert a line break?
As soon as you mentioned it, I started thinking of E86.
In what? Oh, okay.
It's the only place I parse strings like that. Walk through and count where each space is, and whenever you get to a space, mark that one and replace the integer. And then if you get to more than 40, then you stop looking for spaces. Go to that last space.
Read
the line break.
That command, and if it is 40 characters, add the new line.
Yeah, but what if 40 characters is in the middle of a word? You don't want to press enter in the middle of the word, right? You want to back up a couple spots until you're at the space between those words. How do you do that? Well, any way you cut it, we need to be able to count in 40, right? And we need to be able to keep track of where we currently are in the code. So now we need to put a little comment in here. Add line breaks. That's going to be our magic here, right? So we're going to keep track of a pause. We're going to start off at pause 0. All right. We're going to not potentially. We will walk through this entire string, right? We're just going to be throwing some extra stuff in there along the way. So we're going to need a new string that we're building. So let's call this string Modcomment. And we'll set this guy starting as the empty string. And then we're going to have a for loop. Comment dot length. Like that. So this will go through every character in comment. Now, as we're walking through here, we want to keep tacking on the characters that we're running into onto something. It's potentially not going to be the final something, but onto something until we run into our position. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to create another string called temp. And inside here, we'll actually start temp off of the empty string. So I want to build up a string temp that when I'm done with it, I can tack it on to the end of Modcomment as my new addition. At the end of temp every single time should have a character return at the end of it. All right. So I just need to fit the stuff in there that takes me up to that carriage return. So the very first thing I need to do is I need to walk from my starting position, where I currently am, up to what? The end of the string? Now, what if I did something like this? What if instead of going through every character in the string, we turn this into a while loop? We say while pause is less than comment dot length. As long as we add characters we're still working with. Now we want to ask ourselves, is pause plus 40 greater than comment dot length? That's kind of our special case. So if what I have left isn't 40 characters, I'll just keep it and move on, right? So if that's the case, I'm going to say if pause plus 40, if that guy is greater than or equal to comment dot length, what will we do? We're going to set temp equal to, now we need to get from position pause to the end of the string put into my into temp. So we have a comment, and we're going to get a substring from that guy, and we're going to have a start index. The start index is going to be pause, and that's going to go all the way to the end of the string, and that's what we'll put into temp. Else, I have more than 40 characters to work with. Correct? Now, just so we don't forget, after this if or the else, temp holds the stuff that we want to tack on to Modcomment. So we'll go ahead and say Modcomment plus equals temp. And then we'll say temp is equal to the empty string. Local variables. No, this is right. I want this to be plus equals.
Assignment of months. Okay.
I see what you're saying. Double equal sign there. Never defined it. Okay. There we go. So we'll go ahead and tack on to Modcomment my temp, however we figured out temp. Then we'll zero out temp for the next thing. So my easy temp, this is the temp that when we're at the end of a string or on a shorter comment, this is the temp that is my comment is less than 40 characters. I don't care where the line, there is no line break to insert. All right. But now if I'm in this else, I need to insert a line break. All right. So how do I insert a line break? Well, maybe the better question is where do I insert the line break? I want to insert the line break at the closest space that is less than 40 characters forward. So very first thing I need to do is I need to figure out where 40 characters forward is, right? Another thing we need to do in here is we need to say pause plus equals 40. Right? This will get us past the end of that, past the end of the string. Now in this guy here, we're going to ask the question, well, we know we have at least 40 characters of runway. So we're going to run ahead 40. And we're going to say, is this a space? Okay. If it is, we're good, right? So that's going to be the easy case. So we're going to say, if, comment, let's see, for strings, I think in C# it's like that, right? If comment at bucket pause plus 40 is equal to a space. That's a true statement. If I'm looking at a space, then I'm good. That's exactly where I want to put. That's exactly where I want to put my character return. So what will I do? I'm going to go ahead and say temp is equal to comment dot substring starting at position pause and going up to position pause plus 41. Because it's non-inclusive. So that'll take us to up to position 40, where we know is that space. So that's going to get us a substring from our comment, and then we'll tack on to that \n, our carriage return. And we'll go ahead and say pause plus equals 40. Actually, this should be plus equals 41. Is we're positioning pause for the next beginning. Otherwise, we'll duplicate a character. We're okay up here. We can say 41 if we want to keep it consistent because we know we're running past the end of the string up here. So we might not even need to go to 40 to get past the end of our string here. Okay, so if the place that has the 40 character cutoff is a space, great. I don't need to do any backtracking. I'll go ahead and I'll grab my substring from comments starting at position pause, going up to position pause plus 41, not including that position. So this will get me pause plus 40 up to that point. Then I'll go ahead and tack on my carriage return there. Then I'll make sure I add 41 to pause so that the next time through this loop, we're picking up where we left off. But now if I'm in this else, this else says that there is not a space at pause plus 40. So I need to backtrack until I find one. Make sense? Yeah. Hide. Oh, I thought I was minimizing that. Almost as good. All right. So if I'm at position pause plus 40, and that's not a space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say int advance is equal to 40. That's how far we want to try to advance. And realistically, once you see this algorithm, we could have done this in less lines. I'm taking the very obvious approach. Okay, so we'd love to try to advance 40. Now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to say while. Now I know if I'm in this else that I have up to 40 characters to play with. I know I have space. Okay, so while comment, comment at bucket advance is not equal to a space. Advance minus minus. My indentation looks very funny here. Why? I think I could just do this, and this, and this. Don't we have a fixed indentation thingy?
Control Shift A. Control.
That's I. Oh, whatever. It's fine. call that good. Okay. So we'll keep subtracting from advanced until advanced is sitting on a space. And at that point, what will we do? We'll say temp is equal to comment dot substring starting at position pause, going up to position advance +1, but it does not include that. Tack on to that carriage return. We're going to just type that carriage return. And then we're going to say pause plus equals advance +1. Because we didn't actually advance the entire 40. We advanced a subset of 40. So this figures out how far we actually are allowed to run. And the hope is what? That there's not some gigantic word there that you just happen to be at like the very last character of some giant word. Now I have to backspace like 31 characters. What's that? What's a long? There's probably some giant word, right? Is there a word longer than 40 characters? Probably.
I don't
Define a word.
Over how many characters?
40.
Oh, there's 20.
Okay, name one then. As you say it with such confidence.
Most of the longest words in the English language are actually nouns that describe chemical compounds. And they're actually considered a word, but they're not called by their name.
For example, like
the longest one is like 40,000 letters long.
Right.
All right, so I have a question. A follow-up. Why do you know that?
Because I once wanted to know what the longest word in the English language was.
You know who you should become friends with.
Myself?
Now, other Tim. This guy, he's done a bunch of research on like infectious diseases and stuff.
I actually got a parasite in Costa Rica. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. But I mean, like even before that, he did a bunch of like mathematic models and stuff for like how quickly like horrific diseases spread. Like all of his presentations he did in this other class was about how people die.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Longer than how many characters?
40.
I don't know that it's 36.
Okay. So we've got.
Which one's that?
People battle mass assessment.
Numino ultramicroscopic silico volcano coniosis.
That one is 45 characters.
Okay. So we hope that we don't use any of those words in our dialogue. Okay. Don't use any of the scary long ones in our dialogue. Did you get your hair cut?
I can think of
Really? I hate it. I don't like it. No, I mean really bad. Right, Joseph?
It's okay.
What's up?
You have Python on there. Just try to install this stuff.
For the ultrasound technology.
Okay.
It's 27.
So we're not going to use that word. That one's too long. Hey, shut up!
Yeah, damn.
This is the second time.
All right, so we won't use that long of a word. All right, so let's finish testing this. All right, so I just love how quickly silence just occurs. Just love it. It's going to be almost as fast when we're going to the hackathon tomorrow, and I'm driving while watching a movie in VR.
Sure.
It's going to be fine. I have a self-driving car.
You have a VR camera that you're going to mount, and so you have, VR view of the road.
No.
And then you just have the camera in there.
That'll get in the way of my movie.
Of course. Of course.
All right. So in any case, all this stuff has this effort of just getting our string divided up by \n. Okay. Hopefully for right now, let's just call it reasonable positions. I'm sure we can feed this guy. I'm pretty sure we're in good shape. We might be off by a character in one of these things, but we can probably feed it some very targeted sentences that wouldn't divide up as well as we want them to. But in general, this should do a pretty good job. All right. So let's go ahead and see that. So this get next comment is going to grab our very next component, then remove that component from the list because we don't need it again. We're about to spit it out to the screen and we're done with it. Then we will build our full comment. That's going to be with the who is saying it, followed by a colon, followed by a space, followed by the comment itself. And then we're going to go through and we're going to modify that guy with our carriage returns as needed. So that's what this while loop does. This while loop just keeps kicking forward until we finally overtake the length of our comment. Each time through, we ask, well, if I don't have 40 characters left, just tack on what I have left and move on. Otherwise, I have at least 40 characters left. Well, if the character 40 characters forward is a space, great. Grab up to that point, tack on the carriage return, move on. Otherwise, I have 40 characters left. Character 40 ahead of me is not a space. I need to figure out how far back do I need to back up until I find a space. So I'll jump into advance, and this is actually not comment at advance. This is comment at pause plus advance. That's what that should say, right? So go to position pause and comment, add to it the current value advance. So position 40 first. We actually could probably throw 39 in here if we want to be a little more efficient. We wouldn't be in here if we knew that, unless we knew that 40 was not a space. Okay, so we'll start one spot back. So with pause plus advance, if that guy is not equal to a space, then, well, as long as that guy is not equal to a space, then back up. If we're here, that means we have found the correct offset for advance, and we need to go ahead and get, we have the same bug here, the substring from position pause to position pause plus advance plus 1. Which presumably would be a value at least, no more than 39 characters forward. Tack on our carriage return and then increment pause by whatever it currently is plus advance plus 1. At the end of all that whole if else structure, we're going to tack on to Modcomment our new version of temp, whatever that was. So modified version of temp, and then go ahead and zero out temp. Now down here, this is past the end of our while loop. When we exit this, we've done this for the entire string, and Modcomment has our final answer. So we'll go ahead and return Modcomment. That make sense? Okay, so let's try to get this for our very, very, very first comment. So we already, in our scene controller, we already created our dialog controller. We added some components to it, and I think at least a couple of these are more than 40 characters, so we should be good there. All right, now, update text here is currently taking in a string. But really what we wanted to do, for right now, let's just ignore the string that it takes in. We'll leave this player command up. But what I want to do is, instead of saying this guy is S, I want to say this guy is this dot the dialog controller dot get next comment. All right. So this is going to use our dialog controller to extract the next comment in our line of comments, hopefully with those carriage returns put in. I will just use it for a single move right now. All right, so let's go back here, test this. So the hope is we get a pretty similar look to what we had before, but we just know we got it in a different way. Greetings, you who are highly favored, the Lord is with you. Is that actually broken in a different place? I think that is broken in a different place. I mean, it's fine, but I think before, the Lord is with you was on its own line. Yeah. Does that seem reasonable? I'm fine with it. Mary, fine with it? All right, so what we're going to do next then is we need to write this code for doing the trigger to move on to the next comment. All right, so let's go ahead and let's take 10 minutes, stretch, walk around, stuff